Happy International Women's Day, everyone. We are super excited to be here for a panel of incredible women leaders working in the space of social impact, of creating organisations that support women as a celebration of International Women's Day. So I'm Naomi. I am co-founder of Holos Kombucha. We brew and sell delicious tasting kombucha whilst creating work opportunities for women who've been exploited or experienced trauma in their lives. And that's what kind of prompted us really to reach out to some friends who are also doing similar work of creating organisations led by women for women, really with the purpose of making a wider impact and difference. And the theme of International Women's Day this year is accelerating impact. So we're looking through the lens of social impact. How can we as women lead, found, curate, create organisations and models and services that make a real difference in the lives of women around us. So we're going to touch on lots of topics today with the glorious wisdom in this virtual room, looking at fempreneurship. What does it look like to lead for something as a woman, to create purposeful business and organisations? What are some of the innovative ideas out there in terms of the models that we're using to make a difference in the lives of women? And what's ahead for organisations led by women for women? So we're going to hear from all of our amazing panel. The quick intro, name, what you do in your organisation, and a shout out to a woman in your life. I'm actually going to shout out to my co-founder, Megan. We met on a plane 10 years ago, flying to Cambodia to work with women on the streets of Phnom Penh. And without her, definitely wouldn't be doing this today. And just want to call out her kind of faith, her fun, her friendship. So thank you, Megan, over the years. So who wants to kick us off? Let's hear from you guys and we'll go from there. Go on, jump in. There we go, Annika.
There we go. Hello. What a joy. What a joy to be with all of you. I'm Annika. I'm the founder of Recognised and the Recognised Foundation. Recognised is a social impact jewellery business that supports a range of different causes. And the foundation helps people to feel seen, valued, and recognised when they need it most through supporting different charities and also running viral social media campaigns to encourage people to give recognition and love to their loved ones. I would like to shout out to Indy, who is one of our charity partners, also a female founder, and she runs something called Pink Letters, and they send a pink letter of encouragement to teenage girls across the world every month. And I know that's something that I so would have needed and benefited from when I was a teenager. And she's just like light, and she's like your big sister to these younger girls and encouraging. I think she's doing such an amazing job, and I couldn't champion her more.
I love that. I think we all need a pink letter. Send
We
them out.
need a pink
That's
letter.
amazing.
Yeah. What isn't it? It's just so simple but so powerful. I think it's amazing what she's doing.
Incredible. Thank you, Annika. Thanks for kicking us off. Who's next?
I'll go. So my name's Lucy. I am CEO and co-founder of Brand Bakehouse. We're a Sussex-based charity supporting women who've experienced abuse, exploitation, and displacement. And we do that in quite a unique way by using baking as a form of therapy, along with mental health support and life skills to get them back on track. And I'm shouting out to my service manager, Carly, because without her, everything would fail. So she's brilliant at what she does, and she knows how to work with women in such a just compassionate and nurturing way, which is quite a hard skill to learn. So yeah, I'm shouting out to her. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. Yeah, amazing. Thank you. Who's next?
I'll go next. Hi, everyone. My name's Romilda. I'm the founder of the Romilda Moore Foundation. We are a human rights NGO that works to provide free legal and holistic support to survivors of human trafficking and gender-based violence. So we work to really help these clients reintegrate safely back into society with access to financial stability. And I guess who I would shout out is actually my mum. She's been a great support and backbone in my life and in that of my family. She's just a boss, and she's paved the way for a lot of us to kind of be here and do what we're all doing. And she's just always a voice of encouragement. So that's it for me.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you.
I can jump in next if that's all right. I'm Emily. I'm the CEO of Sophie Hayes Foundation, which supports women survivors of modern slavery and human trafficking on their journeys to long-term independence and freedom from re-exploitation. The organisation was founded by a survivor for survivors. We run an employability programme and we have a survivor community crew, the creative, resilient, empowered women, and we're a mighty all-woman team. And I'd like to shout out one of our participants who, in spite of going through an incredibly tough time at the moment, is still studying, volunteering. She really has a brilliant sense of humour and she's looking towards her future for what she might do, maybe as a chemical engineer, she was telling me just the other day. And she is an absolutely brilliant person and a great friend.
I love that. Thank you, Emily. And I guess it's bringing it round to kind of why we're doing what we're doing. And actually, the most inspiring people I think we possibly all work with are the women that these organisations are coming alongside. So love that. Thank you. Great to have you here. Who else?
I'm happy to go next. My name's Jenny. I'm co-founder, co-director of Orchids. We are a Christian charity supporting women who've experienced sexual exploitation on their journey towards independence and flourishing. So we provide safe housing and in-house support work and trauma therapy along the journey. We work in partnership with local churches in London and down in East Sussex now as well. And I want to give a shout out to one of our residents who's been with us for, I think, about 18 months or so now. It's the first time she's ever lived independently, haven't been trafficked to the UK, and lived street homeless for a long time. She's just made such enormous progress in the time we've seen her, from dealing with kind of the day-to-day, navigating life in London, to taking steps forwards, getting some training, employment, learning what she wants to do, and finding her voice as well. And she's just such an inspiration. I can't praise her highly enough.
I'm just feeling so much love, Jenny, in your voice as you're talking about that. That's amazing. Thank you. Great to have you here. Thank you so much. Emily, last but not least.
Hi there, everybody. So I'm Emily. I am a founder of Ella's. We're a London-based charity working with women who've experienced trafficking and sexual exploitation. Our mission is to do all we can to help survivors recover and to build and live lives that are safe and free. We currently have 6 homes in London, so where women come to live with us for anywhere between a year to 18 months. That's the sort of the goal. But yeah, it looks different individual to individual. And yeah, working with women across London as well. Again, working on all aspects of their recovery with that purpose of building independence. And we're an all-female team, just amazing group of women that I get to work with. I really do mean this completely, that I would choose every one of them again. And they're just such a great group of women. Today, if you hear some noise in the background, it's our full team day. So we've got Thursday's the day we all work together. So I'd shout out each one of them, and of course all the women that we work with.
That. And Emily and I were just reflecting just ahead of this call. I think the last time I visited Ella's, it's your first home, and you were all sort of mucking in, and it was painting, there was all sorts going on, and it's just astonishing, to hear what's happened over those years, and the devotion there. I think the devotion from all of you actually in building these organizations and services. So amazing. It's just so encouraging already to hear all that's happening. So we have an amazing panel here. It's super obvious there's a lot of wisdom in the room. Let's dive in. Let's look a little bit, I guess, looking back at some of the journey so far, and what it's been like, I guess, to found and or lead this kind of organization over time. So love to hear, I guess, if anyone's got any stories that bring to life kind of what actually fueled or inspired you to start up what you're doing. I'd love to hear from 2 or 3 people maybe. What actually was the kind of contributing factor to make this happen in the first place?
I can talk on this.
Go for it, yeah.
Well, so Ella is named after a person, Ella, who I met. I lived in Bangkok for a few years working for another charity there, and working with women who were trafficked into Bangkok. She's a Russian Uzbek girl who was taken over there, ended up in London. This is a very long story, but ended up in London after I was back in the UK for a year, and got in touch with me and asked for support, asked actually for me to take her to hospital. She ended up having a breakdown, and the long story short is there was nowhere for her to go. And I was working at that time connecting with other anti-trafficking organisations and hearing some of the limitations in aftercare support for survivors. So that was the main catalyst, I guess. And yeah, and since unfortunately I keep hearing similar stories of just that there is that ongoing need to for aftercare and for safe spaces for women.
Yeah.
So I'm sure many of you in this have come across. So
it sounds like it's kind of a personal encounter there, basically, and like a need that you witnessed and that you sort of followed your nose on how can I help? Am I right?
Yeah, I mean that makes it sound easier than it was, but yes, for
Yeah,
sure.
no kidding.
But yes, and yeah, it was actually doing a bit of work with the Sophie Hayes Foundation right at the start of when Sophie Hayes Foundation was birthed. We did a research project into what sort of was needed in terms of support for survivors. So yeah, there was a few different things that contributed to the journey and deciding to go the route of creating safe homes.
Yeah. Some heart, some head. There's something about, I guess, just noticing who am I meeting, what needs am I encountering, and then that sort of validation, is that what's really needed? What else could that look like? How about anyone else? Anyone got something similar or different in terms of what led you to start things up?
Yeah, I can speak into that as well. Similar to Emily, it was kind of personal experience and also kind of volunteering and hearing from other organizations that there was this gap. And for us, it was, or particularly for me, it was how can I fix this, being a kind of fixer personality type, and how can I kind of fulfill that need. So yeah, it was really born out of a place of seeing that there was a lot of re-trafficking happening, and now we know kind of as we've branched out, there's a lot of situations where women are going back into abusive relationships. So how do you break the cycle of that and create something which is an alternative and kind of a hope-filled project that prevents that from becoming a reoccurring cycle in somebody's life? So that was very much what kind of drove us to do it, fueled with a lot of, I guess, compassion and determination, like most people, if not all of us in this room, because, you know, when you're starting something, it's never straightforward or easy, is it? So yeah, which has just kind of carried me through definitely over the 10 years.
I think there's something really important in that, actually, like having compassion, having emotion, connection, conviction, to what the actual cause is, what the actual challenge or problem is. I think it can really be an important fuel for when it does get really tricky. It does get hard, and I know we've all been through those moments. So yeah, I love that, Lucy. And I'm curious, how did baking factor in?
I was a baker. I'm not so much anymore because I haven't got any time now. But really enjoyed baking and also saw it as a therapy, really, and quite a healing kind of. It's got a healing nature to it. So that was something that really drove us. And actually, similar to Emily at Ella's, it was Sophie Hayes Foundation that we kind of linked with and thought, okay, how do we combine this kind of healing, nurturing environment with also an employability aspect to it? And that's developed over time to not just be employment, but be kind of well-being, a lot more holistic approach to it. But baking is kind of the vehicle that gets people in the door now, because they say, oh yeah, I'd like to go on a baking course. And actually it's so much more than that once they get in and realize that they can build their confidence through that and talk to other people whilst they're baking. And yeah, it can be quite therapeutic. Yeah.
Anyone else? Any other kind of origin stories? Maybe something completely different.
I have one that's very different.
Do it. Let's hear it.
So I've heard this before, but I started recognized in 2018, but I think 2014, 2015, so almost 10 years ago when I was at university, I actually had a dream in the night. So like visual, actual dream. I'd never had a dream like it. And I saw a woman who had depression walking into a supermarket. And at the till point, she saw another woman wearing a bracelet that had a dove on, which is now a mental health dove. And I saw the words above her head, I stand with you. And in that moment, the woman didn't feel as alone and had this moment of hope and recognition in realizing that she wasn't the only one struggling or going through something. And, long story short, I went back to uni. A lot of friends started opening up to me about their mental health. And I basically realized that people weren't opening up about things until they'd kind of gone through something. It'd be like, oh, my best friend would be like, Annika, I've had depression for 3 months. And I was so struck that by this point, I just knew that everyone was struggling in silence. And in the mental health kind of realm of work, like we've come so far in 10 years in terms of stigma, and like people do talk about their mental health now. But really, it was this idea that what if there's something that you could wear or give to someone that would be a really amazing way of communicating value and saying, like, I see you and I recognize you and I recognize what you've been through, and I'm here to champion you. And that's why the majority of our products are bought as gifts for people, and really powerful ways to recognize people. And everything I could find to kind of do that was like a plastic wristband or a wristband or a badge. And I was like, oh, I don't want to wear that. And so came up with the idea for our statement pop-ons. And for those that don't know, everyone supports a different cause, and they are just these, we call them symbols of hope, these really powerful ways of communicating hope, communicating value. And they're like precious metal. I didn't want something that wasn't precious metal. In fact, I think we actually got to give some of the bangles to Ella, some of the women at Ella's, like quite a few years ago, because we do an anti-slavery pop on, and 100% of profits from every pop on actually support a lot of these amazing charities. So that's like, completely agree with you, Lucy. Like, you need those things to keep you going, because you're like, on the hard days, I sit and probably cry in the toilet, and I'm like, is this worthwhile? Is this worth the pain? Is it worth the cost? Is it worth the sacrifice? And it always will be worth it, because it really matters and it makes a difference in so many different ways. And yeah, it gets to really place value on people, and communicate to them that they're not alone.
That's amazing. I mean, just the power of, as you say, the power of recognizing and journeying, and I absolutely love, what you started with there about the kind of starting with a dream, and then you sort of built it from there, right? So actually, if that dream was a reality and became a business and grew hands and feet, and what would it look like? So it's incredible sort of guts that you've had to bring that into life.
Yeah. And we're been running 6 years now, and what started as a dream is actually like a reality that we get to see. And we do a lot of retail work and a lot of pop-ups, and I'll never forget the first time we ever did a face-to-face pop-up. And we just launched our breast cancer, not breast cancer, we do an alphabet range for cancer, so people literally buy people's letters that they want to recognize and wear in memory of. And I'll never forget a woman with breast cancer. She came to the pop-up and she just saw the word cancer support and she burst out crying. And our team, like, I will train to, come alongside people in those moments. And it was just the most powerful thing, the simplest thing, but really powerful. And it's beautiful to create spaces for people to find healing, find community, find connection. Sometimes you open up a lot more to someone that you don't know than someone that you do know. My experience has been like, everyone's got something they're going through, and sometimes it just takes one kind person, one little thing to open that up for someone, and then they find freedom through that.
Yeah, amazing. So, I mean, building on that, love to hear from those who've not shared yet, but perhaps kind of looking at that theme around journeying with others. Love to hear a bit more about your journeys as a woman leader, founder, creator. Everyone's got slightly different roles here, of your organizations, what that experience has been like for you? Maybe, yeah, Jenny, Romilda, those we haven't heard from, and then others, please build in. What's your experience been like? What's been great about it? What's been hard about it? Let's just throw in some of the dynamics that have been at play. So Jenny, Romilda, you guys jump in, and then others, please follow.
Where to start, I think, is very hard to sum up. Um, like so many people have said already, coming back to why I'm doing this, why we are doing this at every step of the journey feels so important. From the early days for us, where we had one safe house and we were housing one woman, for me that was such precious learning time. So many resources, hopes, prayers, plans had gone into this first kind of opening of a flat, and we were so hopeful and expectant. And I often go back to those early beginnings and don't want to kind of underestimate how important they were, both as learning opportunities, but a reminder that all of this, all of the effort that's been said before, is worth it for that one woman. And at the time, because COVID hit soon after she moved in, which scuppered our plans for kind of immediate growth at that point, as I'm sure many of us experienced at the time. There's that sense of kind of restlessness. Want to keep going. Most of us here will be doers, won't we? Will be activists, and will be people who want to make stuff happen. I think learning patience along the way, that sometimes things take way longer than you hope and expect it to, but that learning is precious. And I wouldn't have had it any other way. As I think back to the journey, I feel really lucky I get to see this and be on this journey with Emma, who I co-lead and co-founded with. I think collaboration is absolutely key, both for us together as we hold the organisation, but right from the start, just inviting other voices in, other people, wise counsel around us. We can't do this by ourselves. I think that's kind of part of the beauty of today, is reminding us that there are so many people who are in the journey too, and we need to know that we can't act as lone rangers, and we need each other when things get tough, which they will do. We need to be reminded of why we're doing what we're doing, be inspired by other people's journeys and their stories as well. So that's the starting point. I mean, so much learning along the way, but I think for me as a woman as well, it's coming back to why I'm doing it, but also the women we're working with are their sisters, their daughters, their mothers. Not othering the issue feels so important. I really feel very strongly about that message, that relationship is at the heart of what we do at Orchards. I'm sure it is for everybody here as well. I want to keep that central to why we're doing what we're doing and how we're doing it as well, that we don't lose sight of the small things, of stopping for the one, and just how important that is.
I love that kind of there's loads in what you just said. There's loads. There's a piece around, and we've heard it already on this call, connections between different organizations, different people. For example, the relationship with Sophie Hayes over the years, we've heard that from Ella's, we've heard that from Bramba. And this kind of not closing off, but actually opening up relationally, connecting with others and finding that tribe of other people who really care about the things that you care about. And then, yeah, not resenting those early days, but using them as a chance to test, to pioneer, to learn and evolve what you're doing. And as frustrating as it can feel sometimes. I love that. Yeah, Romilda, I'd love to hear from you as well. What's your experience been like?
Yeah, I think it also connects to the question you had asked prior, like what caused me to start the foundation in the first place. So I'm a lawyer by practice. I never wanted to be a lawyer. My dad sent me to law school, and I was like, after that, I'm just going into fashion. But then it was reading about the issues of human trafficking that really struck a chord in me. So I remember one night I was working on a thesis in my law school library, and I started to read about a lot of women's rights issues and the rise in human trafficking. And like, I was just concerned and kind of sick to my stomach at the fact that human beings were still being bought and sold today. Not too long after that, I was in my legal ethics class, and my lecturer started to speak about how there was a lack of access to free legal representation for vulnerable communities due to lack of government funding. A lot of legal clinics in London were closing down. So I just started to weigh up and think to myself, okay, so there's an increase in, exploitation, and there's a decrease in access to legal representation. And that was the moment I decided to actually practice law, to be able to really scope out and build a foundation. So I would say that was my driving factor, to kind of address that legal access gap. And of course, like even similar to Jenny, like when you're starting it, you're hopefully putting the plans together, you're getting everything rallied together and really thinking, strategizing, you really have a clear vision and it all comes together. I think one of the key things that really stood out to me, like when I launched the foundation, we connected very early on with Ella's, and Emily and I got talking about like partnerships and everything like that. And the thing that stood out to me was the need, like the imminent need for what we were providing. That shocked me to my core, because I was like, we're just this little organization that just started like in 2020, and we're already getting referrals. There's such a critical gap for survivors to actually get legal representation. And I was like, okay, it's clear we're really doing the right thing here. But I think the struggle has been still addressing that gap. Like it's still been so difficult to ensure that not only do survivors get like lawyers to represent them, but also to get them represented from a trauma-informed perspective, where clients are not being abandoned or not being disillusioned and a bit confused and left in the dark about what their legal cases are. And it's still a hurdle that we're finding ourselves kind of jumping over every time. I think what motivates me and keeps me going is the women. Like they are my heart. And I think just seeing even when you do fight and you do get a successful case, it's like that win, you can just like wipe the sweat off the brow. It's like, right, let's go for it again, so that's what does keep driving me on. We are working and strategizing on more ways in which we can involve a lot more corporate firms to really provide more pro bono support to clients, because I think it's just such a vital thing that's needed now. Post-trafficking support is so connected to the legal health and security, the immigration security of survivors, and like without that they can't get access to work, they can't reintegrate as well as they need to. So I think that is like what keeps me up at night, I would say. But it is worth it. It definitely is. Yeah.
It's amazing that you were paying attention, right from the start. You've been paying attention to, what am I reading? Wait a minute, there's a gap there in London in terms of the legal clinics. Wait a minute, what can I do here? And still continuing now. You're like, here's the hurdles, here's the barriers, here's what we need to do, and that keeping you moving forward. So it really is something about like, are we paying attention? I think, are we willing to pay attention to really uncomfortable things and be willing to maybe have the courage as well to do something about it? I'm curious around, obviously it's International Women's Day, bunch of women leaders, have you, as a woman leading an organization, have you experienced any barriers that have made it harder to do this? Or has it actually been a bit of a superpower being a woman leading this kind of organization? What's it been like?
Maybe I'll jump in if that's okay. I love the idea of a superpower. It's so fantastic to hear about all of the kind of thoughts and the ideas in the organization and the individuals who've taken something from Sophie Hayes Foundation at the beginning and at the heart. And I'm really lucky. I came in as CEO of Sophie Hayes Foundation last year, but I am not the founder. While there are some women here who were very involved in the founding of that organization, and I am absolutely in awe of people who are able to, as you say, Naomi, just be really aware and see the gaps and kind of try to fill those. I think when I came into the organisation, it had been through a bit of a period of change, and I wanted it to be not just a place where women were doing really great work, because they all were, but one where they also wanted to work and they derived something from it that felt really meaningful for them, and was also just a place that they enjoyed working. And that can be really tough in the charity sector. Romilda, it was really interesting to hear what you said about kind of like the weight of that responsibility, and I think that's something that we surely all feel, where we see the needs and we see the gaps, and we just want to make sure that our organization are continuing to serve those. And I think that can certainly weigh heavily on the team in our organizations too. But I think the superpower that you described, Naomi, women just don't give up. And so to be able to continue to support those people who are working in the organizations just with a really indefatigable spirit, and even in the face of quite a lot of adversity, a huge amount of challenges that are around them, feels really good. And I think the workplace, we experience it probably for ourselves and our teams, and also for those survivors that we see hopefully going into long-term work, it still can feel a really like old-fashioned, quite disempowering place. So I decided when I came in that I just wanted it to feel nothing like that whatsoever. On the contrary, to feel much more of a sort of like informal space where people celebrate what each other does, and they do actually quite enjoy coming into work. So yeah, that was the approach I took.
Love that. I'm feeling that through the screen, Emily, like that kind of warmth and love, actually. And I think you also named a really interesting tension of holding the burden of the reality, what's not fixed, the problem, while still finding moments of joy, I think, and kind of getting that tension and balance, because we all do want to enjoy what we're doing and we want to find life in it. Love to hear other experiences leading as a woman, highs, lows, brilliant
I'd
things,
like
hard things.
I'd like to just speak into the area of being a mother as
Mm.
well, and running an organisation like this. So I've got two children under 6, and they're very close in age, and that has brought its own barriers and challenges. Even though I'm leading the organisation, just in terms of being able to work full time. Do I want to work full time? Do I want to work part time? Is that okay in the sector? And this kind of this pull, I think, of not comparing yourself to others or what others are doing in the space. Because I think as a sector, as a charity sector, it's all kind of go, 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 60-hour weeks, all this kind of stuff, we have to fulfill that need. And yes, that absolutely is the case, but we're also in control of how much we say yes to and how much we can take on as an internal team. And that's been very challenging for me as a mum of 2 young children. And how do I then approach that and make sure I'm getting a good balance of my family time, my own time, and my work time, but also then enabling my others within my organization to also be free to do that. So I think it creates a bit of a unique perspective, but I've definitely found that it's been a challenge. And the other challenge, I don't know if anyone can relate to this, is that the stats at the moment say that most of the high net worth out there at the moment is generated by men. So how do we kind of create that environment where women can come together and use their own money, not their husband's money, but their own money that they're making, to be able to empower other female organizations? And I think it's an interesting one at the moment that we're kind of grappling with, is how do we engage women who are really passionate about this, but have the ability and the means to be able to propel other women forward and kind of empower them to be a part of that not without men involved in it, because of course it's like, you want that inclusive environment. But I think there's quite a unique opportunity there to maybe try and overcome that by gathering women together and kind of creating that community of people that can influence, I guess.
Yeah, can I jump in there? I think, yeah, Lucy, you've said so much there, but I think you're kind of talking to there about like almost the target audience of who you're trying to meet, and do they have the financial decision-making power to actually part with the money? And I think we've done so many on the foundation side of things, fundraising events where, obviously a lot of people that we get there are women, partly, I think, because of the network that we have as a brand and foundation, but also similarly to all of our work here, there's a natural like tug and resonance between being a woman and some of the work that we're supporting. But I definitely have had that experience of, almost the fundraising process is slowed down because they're not the ones being able to, they're not always the ones saying, yeah, I'll sign a check. It's like, I need to go talk to my husband. Like, okay. And that obviously like slows down that process. But as you say, obviously it's about attracting, different, men and women into the fundraising environment. I've also seen that play out in the like in the corporate setting as well for fundraising. I think everyone will know that like 2% of VC funding goes to female founders. I've been slightly more I benefited slightly more because I did found recognized with a man, so that the odds go slightly up. But I mean, it is shocking when you really break it down. It's like 2p of every pound is going to a woman, and you have to ask why. And I think I've been thinking about that more and more. And you're like, is it systemic? Like, is it a systemic issue? Is it misogynist? Is it all of these things? And actually, like more recently, as I turned 30 in June, and all of a sudden, it feels like in the last year, suddenly something that I've never been aware of. And now I feel like I'm aware of it every day is this like biological clock and this just very real ceiling, which I find so frustrating because it is a reality for women that, you know, if you want to have children, you need to do it before a certain age. And obviously not everyone chooses to have children. Your life isn't made by having children. But if you do choose to do that and you're running an organization, I think there is a hard reality, not to say that you can't do both. And Lucy, oh my gosh, I want to know how you do it. But like at the moment, I'm like, gosh, I pour like everything into this brand like all the time, and I struggle to, you know, even when I'm looking after my dog, I find that difficult. And so that balance of how we run organizations and have children, just that I think there's so much societal pressure on women, maybe more so than men, to be so many things. Be a good friend, be a good wife, be a good boss, be a kind boss, but also don't be, you know, just all of these things. And I think it's a lot. I think that's probably, to summarize, is what I find a lot as a female entrepreneur running an organization, is there's just so many things to live up to and be, and that is quite mentally exhausting at times.
Can I just, off the back of that, just speak into that a little bit more? Because one of the things that we recognise that is kind of a unique power is the fact that we are women who have children. We're co-founders that have children, and we've kind of used that to our advantage. So in the early days, we would take our kids into our board meetings, and I would take my baby with me because I was breastfeeding at the time. And, you know, you can't get away from those kind of things. So I think there is a unique power that we hold as female founders and female chief execs to be able to challenge the status quo and almost to not care about the fact that people say that's a bit different, but it's what works for us. And it, you know, it absolutely didn't stop me from doing my job. You know, it's just a different way perhaps of other people doing it. So I think there is a unique power that we hold to be able to do things differently, and make it work for us and for our teams as well.
Any other thoughts on this? Love to hear some other thoughts. I guess I'm hearing an aspect of being a woman could be having children. For others, it's not. I'm curious around kind of, yeah, holding, I think, the burden of expectations, Annika, that you're talking about there, which I think would apply to a lot of people. How do we manage that? Emily, I just saw you took yourself off mute. Are you going to jump in? Now you are. Are you?
I was just going to say, I put these questions to the team earlier. Just wanted, we have a Thursday morning check-in, everybody, and I guess something that we've grown and taken for granted is that we're an all-female team, so therefore we are adapting to all the needs of each person. And as I've grown Ella's, we are here to support women, and we say we do all we can to support the women we work for, but that's only so good as we then support our staff. So it's very much about how do we work with the individual needs of the staff. So sometimes or most times on a Thursday, we have children here because some of the staff have children, little children. We're very flexible in our working, and I guess it's all built on that like trust that people are going to do their work, and it can't look like a 9 to 5 just because maybe that is a very male construct, that sort of 9 to 5 working week, and we have to be flexible and different if we're going to meet the needs of the people we're working with, but also taking care of ourselves and each other.
Something about like reshaping the mold I've been thinking a lot about this theme of fampreneurship. You know, what does it look like to run a business as a family business? And I don't even mean just with having children. I think there's elements of caregiving that fall into lots of different women's roles in different ways, many times unrecognized. And so something about, I love that, Emily, that kind of, and Lucy, how do we sort of remodel this and choose what we want? Create what we want it to be like, create the cultures we want to lead for. To your point, Emily, are creating a place where people actually want to work. So there's loads for the taking, but the reason is because it's quite a challenge, isn't it? It's quite a challenge. I'd love to hear, you know, moving into a little bit kind of some of the innovations you guys have been leading for in terms of supporting women, I guess, external to your organizations, the women that you work alongside. Tell me more about sort of some of the pioneering ways that you've been able to support or come alongside women. What's kind of surprised you the most on that journey? What's made the biggest difference? Love to hear any reflections on that, you know, especially thinking about our big International Women's Day theme, accelerating action. What's really accelerated the impact and action through the work you're doing? There's lots of questions in there. So.
I'd love to mention something if possible. I think I have been surprised by the power of truly believing in somebody, the power that a little bit of belief can give. You know, if somebody essentially feels like their opinion is not valued, they're not really quite good enough, they'll do and continue to do the worst work ever. If you believe in them and give them the opportunity to demonstrate that belief in them, they'll do the best work ever. So I'm a great believer in just saying like, oh yes, you can definitely do that, pushing them metaphorically up onto the stage and just being like, off you go, and then they'll do it. And might they do that piece of work in exactly the same way I would have done? Definitely not. Might it be absolutely brilliant first time? Probably not. But you can deal with all of those things later. Just be like, yes, off you go. No, you go to that meeting by yourself. I remember really early in my career, I think small organizations, businesses, social impact businesses or charities are great places for women because you have exposure to so many different opportunities. I remember one of the early kind of career experiences I had, and I had a woman boss. She would just take me along to like her meetings, and I, you know, met all of these different politicians and all of these things, and she didn't mind if I didn't perhaps ask the most thoughtful question or I didn't necessarily know all of the context, but it just provided so much opportunity. So I take any opportunity I can to literally just push people forward, say go along to that event, speak at that, yes you can, no worries, we can talk about any, you know, challenges later, and that dose of belief in someone I think really does go a long way.
Oh my gosh, I completely agree. I was literally going to say the same thing. And that Oprah Winfrey has a quote, and she says, all anyone ever needs is just one person to believe in them. And for her, I think it was her teacher growing up. And, you know, it could be a teacher, it could be a caregiver, it could be a friend, it could be a boss. I completely agree. And sometimes you've got to put, maybe in like work environment, like you said, sometimes you've got to put the work secondary to someone's development and someone actually taking that next level and that next leap and being okay with like you say, this might not be how I do it, and I'm actually willing for it not to be that good, but seeing how someone grows and they're put into that position of trust and belief, it's so cool. And like would love to hear from, you know, particularly how that plays out with some of the women that you guys support, because, you know, that applies for everyone, but then you take a woman who's been a victim of, you know, the most disgusting exploitation and one of the biggest injustices in the world, then someone believing in them, like that is like it's unfathomable to think of the impact that has. And I know little bits because I obviously know Emily, but I'd love to know more from you guys how you see that working out with the women you work with.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point you've raised, Annika. I was actually going to say, like, working with women, like with the women we support and, you know, women-led teams, is this unspoken understanding we have of one another. And I think there's just a synergy with the clients we support at our foundation where there's like a safety element where they can just be really open and vulnerable to us in ways that maybe, and I stress maybe, they wouldn't be with, the opposite sex. But I think with us, it's just this sense of understanding where I don't have to always say I understand. They just know that I understand, just by the ways that we kind of know what to assume and how to care for them and how to kind of listen to them and hear what they're not always saying, and kind of thinking ahead about childcare or things that they may need or kind of concerns that they have. Even when, like sourcing lawyers for them, giving them like the heads up that, oh, this lawyer will be a gentleman. Are you comfortable about that? Would you prefer to have like a woman in the call? We can be there to support you, that kind of element. And it just helps them just kind of take so many more strides in their own personal life, just feeling empowered. I think it's something that's so silent, yet so powerful, being able to look at another woman who knows your past and is actually trying to help you get to your future. And I think even from the element as a team, I mean, we've had members of our team who've been with us like going on 4 years now. And I think it's because of that unspoken understanding, to work together with other women, but also to help women who have been in, unfortunate circumstances in the past. And there's just that drive and that commitment that you see with them, that is just beyond me. Like just the length and the breadths that they go to. I think it's because no matter where we come from, no matter what our background is, no matter whether, I've been exploited or you haven't, I think one thing we have in common is that we are women. And that just creates like just this bonding that is so, so strong. And it just helps us to continue fighting for each other every day. So it's really good.
I love what you were saying about that. I think what it comes down to as well is this. I was reading an article that Harvard wrote recently about psychological safety, and that's what we're trying to kind of create, not just, with the women that we're supporting, because that's what it looks like to be trauma informed, isn't it? As a part of that is that safety and that kind of feeling that you can kind of do what you want to do. But I relate to what Emily was saying earlier. You've got to be able to do that for your staff team as well, because it's not just for the women that you're supporting. So how do you create that environment where it's a psychologically safe environment for people to make mistakes, for people to learn? I think that's one of the beauties of being a founder, is that you've gone through that journey by yourself anyway. You've made mistakes and you've learned, and you don't mind piloting things and kind of going, well, it might work or it might not. And there's beauty in that, because then you can pass that down to your team, but also having that zero tolerance for it to be any other way. And I think that is sometimes the tricky aspect, I think, of leading an organization, is when you have perhaps people coming into your organization who you might hire, or volunteers who aren't aligned with those values. And how do you create that kind of zero tolerance for, we don't talk in this particular way, we have this is the way that culturally we want to be as an organization, and trying to kind of protect that, but in a way that is giving chances for mistakes. It's a really tricky tension. I don't know if anyone can relate to that, but I think it's really important to protect what you've got and try and nurture that environment so it's suitable for who we're working with.
I can relate to that so much. I'm just going to jump on that. I can really relate to that because I think in the past year we've been doing a lot of expansions. And when we first started, obviously, we were just this like small team who just really understood each other. But then as we grew, I started to realize that, yeah, Remote has developed a culture and values that are really strong, and before it didn't have to be like written down or very much articulated in a way. But as we were growing, I literally had the same encounters, Lucy, where you'd bring on some people who may not understand like the way that we speak to each other, and just the ways that we don't speak to each other. Like, for example, there's something I send love hearts in my emails to my team. And like my colleagues do the same thing to me because it's a culture that we've inhibited. And it's not to say that we want everyone to do that, but there's things that we just don't want to have, like profanity, for example. It's just, you have some work cultures where people may do it as a way to joke. But I always tell my team, my main thing is I don't want anything to trickle down to the clients. So it could start and you might think, oh, I'm just doing it to my coworker, but no, we're all in this. So I don't want you to think that, you can speak to to this person one way, and then months down the line it's like fed back onto a client. So one thing that we are now working on is like really outlining our values and really setting them in stone, having a code of conduct as well. It's kind of difficult because you're like, oh my goodness, I don't want to have this in writing, but as the organization grows, you need to really establish those values and that culture to keep it steady as you widen all round. So yeah, it's a really great point.
Go on, Jenny. Oh, it's on mute, I think.
Classic.
There you go.
I remember when we were setting up a challenge from somebody who's kind of mentoring us, was always holding in tension kind of what it is to be passionate and professional at the same time. And all of us are driven by passion. I imagine all of us on this call will be passionate people, passionate about the causes that we're standing for and standing against. And I think as you grow an organisation, it's recognising the need for that professionalism. You want to seek excellence as well, which is why all the cultural stuff, the value stuff is so, so important. You don't want to lose the passion. You don't want to lose the kind of humanness of the why you're doing it, but you're holding yourself and the organisation to a higher account, aren't you? Because you want to do things with excellence as well. We deserve that to our, for our team, and the people that we're supporting deserve that as well. I think it's something constantly in tension sometimes, that we need to keep readdressing. Are we too much of the passion stuff, or are we so driven by kind of professional excellence that we're losing sight of why and the heart behind what we're doing?
There's a lot of kind of marrying up tensions in this conversation, the heart and the head, the individual's need and the systemic problem. There's kind of, how do you grow an organization whilst keeping the kind of a startup or grassroots nature of it? And I think that's one of the things that comes with leading, doesn't it? It comes with a leadership role. And what I love and what I'm hearing is this passion for integrity from everyone on this call. So actually, we want whatever we're representing out there to be represented in here. We want it to feel as supportive for our staff as we do for those we're working with, and vice versa. So there's something really beautiful in kind of the way that you're being so intentional. I guess I'm hearing a lot of intention. I'm wondering, we're coming closer to the end of our hour. I wish we had more time. If you could leave this panel with a little bit of advice to anyone who's hearing this thinking, I want to create something, I see a need, I have a vision, a passion for something, what would that advice be? Let's just hear from everyone. And maybe it could include something you wish you'd kind of known right at the start. So let's hear from everyone on this call. It's a little bit of advice, a snippet of wisdom.
Shall I go here? Just simply, find someone or the people to do it with. Definitely Holos would not be where it is if didn't have a great co-director, Minka, but also a wonderful team. And you need people to sense check your crazy ideas and find your people.
Going off the back of that, I will say find your why. Like that is something that should never change. If you know why you want to do it, and regardless of how many hurdles come your way, you're going to still keep driving. So really find your why, and don't be afraid. I think fear is a big distraction and a big deception. So once you know why you're doing it, and you have that core, it will help you kind of break down any wall that you come in contact with. So
I think the fear is a big one, that you get a lot of people coming to you saying, how do I start similar projects? And I'll always say, you just have to start. You just have to start with something really small, because if we hadn't taken that first step, we would have never kind of snowballed into more steps and more steps and more steps. It's quite easy to do a lot of planning, but at some point you have to put those plans into action. So just everything that has been said already, finding those people around you that can help you, but just starting and doing it in small steps is sometimes okay, rather than having that big sort of 10, 20-year plan. It can just be a small step to start with.
I was hearing the words like dream big but start small, and it's too overwhelming to think about how to tackle the whole mountain, as opposed to going, okay, how do I get to base camp 1, how do I get to base camp 2, and go from there. Kind of related to that, I don't know who said patience before, but the kind of main thing that came to my head was like, have faith but also have patience, and you have to have both together. And I wish when I was starting I had more patience, or I wish I hadn't set the expectation almost so high, because then everything else was like, oh, it has to be this, and you almost feel disappointed and that you've not got to where you can see, as opposed to just holding it so lightly and being like, I'm just going to take this small step and have patience to do this for however long it takes. And I'm actually quite a football fan. And well, I'm into like sports psychology, so I like the football analogies. And there's one with like Pep Guardiola, who's the Man City like most successful, I think, manager ever. And like Man City they won something called the treble, I think like 2 years ago, and there was a whole documentary on it, and it was so inspiring, because Pep Guardiola was being interviewed about, oh my gosh, you're about to win the treble, and he was like, I'm not even thinking about that until we've won the Premier League, we've won the Champions League, and we're sat like in the dressing room at the FA Cup. Until then, I'm just going to focus on the game with Sheffield United next week. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that's it, isn't it? You've got to hold the big, but be focused on the small, and be really patient, and that will help you stay in, and I think endure longer. And I need to do that a lot more.
I completely agree with you. I think it was reported that the Queen had said to Liz Truss when she first became Prime Minister, pace yourself. And when I heard that, fairly recently started at Sophie Hayes Foundation. I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't pace myself at all. I felt the weight of all of this expectation of everything that needed to be done so quickly, and I threw myself at it. And after a few months, I was absolutely exhausted, and I thought, I just can't sustain this pace. I wish I had maybe given myself a little bit longer on some of these things, because everything feels so urgent and so much of a priority. But actually, you do have the time and the space. As you said, Lucy, at the beginning, you can actually dictate what you say yes to, and when, and how much time you give yourself for stuff. I think just one other message that I really want to end on, which is that so many people here do a wonderful range of programs and services which are very empowering for women. Still, in spite of everything that we do, the odds in the system can just be absolutely stacked against women. And I think if I have one message this International Women's Day, is to our political leaders, and to just be really brave in the decisions that you make that actually do break through some of those systemic challenges. We've all mentioned how we've been inspired by the women that we work with in some of our programs. And I was just astonished by the degree of entrepreneurialism that the survivors who've been through our programs have. So many who want to found businesses, catering companies or jewelry businesses or whatever it may be, but they don't have the right to work. And the boldness of giving the right to work to survivors, to women survivors, to be able to set up those businesses is the kind of political bravery that I really want to see.
Two things from me to end. I think, firstly, don't forget to celebrate success right from the get-go. Make time to celebrate success. Feels so important. It will keep you going right through the journey. Keep stuff as evidence to look back on when things are tough, and don't underestimate the small victories and the small wins. And the second thing is keep self-care as part of your planning. Don't get too much into task mode that you neglect to think about the impact it's having on yourself. Setting up anything, founding anything, driving anything takes a huge amount. You need your cheerleaders and your champions around you, but you need to take self-care and your own well-being, because you're going to be in it for the long haul. Without that, you're going to crash and burn pretty quickly.
Love that, Jenny. I mean, that last 5 minutes, so much gold in that. I'm just going to play back. So we've got find your people, find your tribe, find your why, get clear on that, hold on to that as kind of the fuel. Just start, just do something, even if it feels very small, just start, dream big, start small, have patience, pace yourself, celebrate success, and self-care. There you go. There's a recipe. And I love that challenge there, Emily. I think that's right. You know, we all have a part to play, and those who have specific power and influence use it for good. You know, be bold. What's that quote? Courage, not the absence of fear, but believe something else is more important. So what is more important? What is our focus and our attention on? So happy International Women's Day. Long may this great work continue and grow out from here. And thank you to each and every one of you for being part of this. And thank you to anyone who's checked this out and watched it as well. Reach out to us. We want to support and encourage what you're looking to do to continue, I guess, making that impact together by women, for women. Let's do it. Thanks, guys.